The average pressure at sea level is called atmospheric pressure. And the variable for atmospheric pressure is capital P with a little ATM subscript. Let's look at the units. Let's look at the imperial units, the English units. Atmospheric pressure is 14.7 pounds per square inch, because I think this can help us better understand how much pressure air exerts on us. For example, if you had your hand and you drew a square inch on your hand, so 1 inch by 1 inch, that means 14.7 pounds is pressing on that box. 14.7 pounds just due to air, and it's happening to every single square inch of your body. So we have air pushing on us perpendicularly from all different directions at 14.7 pounds per square inch. That is a lot of pressure, and it seems like our bodies ought to be squished. But interestingly, the fluid pressure inside our cells pushes back out at 14.7 pounds per square inch. Perhaps an evolutionary feat, coincidental, I don't know, but it means that we can remain puffy. So what about in SI units? The atmospheric pressure, the value for atmospheric pressure in SI units is 101,325 pascals. We need to know this number. So I like to say 101,325. Atmospheric pressure is 101,325 pascals. I want to pause and make sure that you are aware of something. All of the lessons and units, or all of the lessons and assignments in this unit are going to use atmospheric pressure 101,325 pascals. However, on the AP exam, College Board rounds this value to 1 times 10 to the 5 pascals. And that value is on the AP Physics official equation sheet. So basically, you're going to use the value that College Board tells you to use. However, if you look at the internet, you look everywhere else, most people use 101,325, and that's the number that we're going to use going forward. In addition to atmospheric pressure, we also have gauge pressure. Gauge pressure is the change in pressure from atmospheric pressure. And absolute pressure is just another word for total pressure. As an equation, we can say that the absolute pressure is the sum of the atmospheric pressure plus the gauge pressure. Let's look at an example to help us understand these terms. So it says a student blows air into a balloon, increasing its pressure by 50,000 pascals. What is the absolute pressure inside the inflated balloon? So I made an equation out of some graphics here to show what's happening. So we take a balloon out of the bag, and that is an unblown up balloon. So it's right here. And then we are going to puff, puff, puff. We are going to blow 50,000 pascals into this balloon to blow it up. So when we look at that in terms of the equation, when you take the balloon out of the bag, there is air in that balloon. Even though it's deflated, unless you hooked a vacuum pump to it and sucked the air out of the balloon, there is some air in that balloon. So in this unblown up balloon, there's atmospheric pressure, 101,325. And then when you blow into the balloon, puff, 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 and you add the 50,000 pascals, the total pressure, which is the absolute pressure inside the balloon, is the sum of those two values. Let's look at another example. A tire gauge reads 28 psi. What is the gauge pressure in pascals, and what is the absolute pressure in the tire? So over here we have a tire, and here is the tire gauge attached to the tire. The outer measurements here are measuring the pressure in bars, and the inner values are measuring in psi. So we're using the inner values. And so you can see that this tire gauge is about 28 psi. So psi stands for pounds per square inch. So I just have to convert that with some sort of unit converter into pascals. And that's 193 1,053 pascals. So what is the absolute pressure in the tire? Just like the balloon, the unblown up tire had some air in it. So 101,325 was the atmospheric pressure before we did anything. And then somebody puffed some air into the tire and they puffed in 28 psi. The gauge pressure in pascals is 193,053 pascals. So the tire gauge tells you the gauge pressure, not the total pressure. So when I add those two together, the total pressure inside the tire is 294 some thousand pascals.